There was a time before Magic Arena. Trading card games were only starting to become popular, and early pioneers of Magic were developing new strategies and finding new ways to use the card game Richard Garfield had just developed. But unfortunately, most of the footage of this era is lost to time. Today we're going to peek into the past and show you what Magic was like back in the day. One of you was kind enough to send us these relics of Magic's past, but we can't possibly pretend to know what these eras were like. I was 13 when this came out. So we invited Hall of Famer Frank Karsten to show us what Magic was like back then.
Let's go back in time.
Before we get into the game, Frank story time.
All right, Toralf and Carl. So I'll take you back to 2003. The World Championships were won by Mirari's Wake, which was also the deck that I played back then. But the two decks I selected I felt were a bit more iconic for the era. Also, it's Goblins for me, Blue-Green Madness for you. These were also the second and third most played decks at that World Championships. Right, Blue-Green Madness already won the Odyssey Block Pro Tour a bit before. It won many Grand Prix earlier in the season. And this Goblin deck won various premier events in 2004. And the core of it actually stuck around in competitive Legacy for a long time.
Both are very strong decks.
Yeah, actually the Magnus deck was a pivotal point for me in learning Magic, because when my brother and I would play and we went from understanding that elves synergies +1/+1 to other creatures and stuff, and then understanding that not all synergies were just pump spells. We finally realized that how Madness worked with this card, and it blew our minds as kids.
Oh yeah.
We played a lot of this deck.
Yeah, normally discarding a card is a disadvantage. Yeah. This Madness deck turns it all around.
Yeah.
Your deck was played by Hall of Famer David Humphries, and he really showed the power of using these Madness cards like Basking Root Dweller, Circular Logic, by combining them with discard enablers like Wild Mongrel and Acromoeba, that thereby just offered a cost advantage, allowing you to play these cards for 0 or 1 mana while pumping your creatures. It made for an aggressive and powerful and synergistic deck.
3 mana instant speed worms is pretty good.
Oh yeah, the arrogant worm that just ambushes your attacking creature. Oh yeah, that was fun.
You can go Rootwaller into Mongrel into Oregon Worm, and the game was basically already over.
Mm-hmm. And I will be playing Goblin Bidding, which Wolfgang Eder already introduced to the world at the European Championship earlier in 2003. But then he also took it to the top 8 of the World Championship. It's just a deck with a whole bunch of goblins. Awesome ones that are very memorable for many players.
You played a lot of goblins, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, they're not very good most of the time. It's a weird deck. I remember also there was a discussion between playing black and not black, because there were also mono-red versions, but bidding was very strong, but the mana base was also very bad, but you lose on goblins because the density of goblins is very important. But mostly that deck is a lot of crap cards that are very good together. You play 1 mana 1/1s that pump for 2, 1 mana 1/1 that sacrifice a goblin, 1 mana that makes a mana if you sacrifice a goblin. All of those, not really good on their own, but once you have Sharpshooter, everything makes us damage, and War Chief and Pile Driver especially can be super quick.
Yeah, hit for so much damage.
Yeah, and then a bidding gets all those backs.
For those who weren't playing back in 2003, Patriarch's Bidding, why is it good here?
So Patriarch's Bidding in this deck almost reads 5 mana win the game, because after you've had a bit of setup, you've sacrificed some goblins, and you can get everything back, all goblins from your graveyard to the battlefield. And if there's a Goblin War Chief that gives everything haste, a Goblin Sharpshooter that's gonna ping extra damage, some extra sacrifice goblins let's say Skirt Prospector, along with a Siege Gang Commander, well, you basically get a math puzzle on the battlefield.
Yes.
That will often produce lethal out of nowhere.
A math puzzle seems like the kind of situation where Frank is...
Sometimes it's tough to get the numbers correct, but most of the time it's just poof,
win the game.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's actually it's an homage to Living Death, the Patriarch's Bidding. It just basically is a subset of Living Death where you take the creatures, because you say it's goblins, but the idea is that both players say a creature type and then put all of those creatures. Just usually it doesn't matter what you choose because the goblin jack just kills you instantly. But sometimes it is an actual downside that you get back your worms.
So who's favorite here between you and I?
David Humphries and Wolfgang Eder actually played in the quarterfinals, and there David Humphries emerged victorious with the Blue-Green Madness deck. But I also checked like the coverage archives, and he said that he felt it was actually not a good matchup for him. You can still steal some games with, say, a flying worm. You know, putting Wonder into the graveyard will be huge. But yeah, we'll see how it plays out.
I hope I win that die roll, but before we do roll it, we don't actually need these decks. What we're gonna do is these at Cardmarket. Actually, we would probably play with them, but we would rather you do. So if you follow the link in the pinned comment and in the description below, just with your Cardmarket account, tell us your favorite story about this time, or if you weren't around there, your favorite story about Frank Karsten, I guess. And we'll pick 2 of you, and we'll just mail this to the address on your Cardmarket account. Are you ready to repeat history?
Let's change it around.
As I recall, my deck won this. This hand is excellent at showcasing what this deck does. I know it looks like there's a hole in the 3 and 4 drop slot, but let's just let it play out and I'll let you find out how I'm gonna do something on those turns.
My opening hand has a good mix between lands and goblins. I'm especially happy to see the Sparksmith in there. If I have that on turn 2 and follow it up with some additional goblins, I already have Goblin War Chief and Siege Gang Commander, then it will just be able to mow down Carl's creatures one by one. Oh yeah, this was kind of the deck that you started Magic with, right?
Yes, this was my first real Magic deck, so I'm really, really excited to play it. It was just such a learning experience of looking at discard effects and then looking at Madness cards. I didn't know where to find information about decks at the time. I was a teenager, so I'd go on the Gatherer comments section and see what people were saying about the cards and realizing, what, you can Madness at instant speed. If you discard, you can play your creature, your
all
worm.
the light bulbs going off.
Yeah, I loved it. It was the first time I realized you could really be creative with Magic cards. Speaking of creativity, I'm gonna play an island. And pass it on to you.
Well, I also love like these Goblin decks, which has just so much synergy, and it all starts with Sparksmith.
Ooh.
So it's a 1/1 for 2. It's not the most aggressive creature, but it's mainly here for the activated ability. You can tap it to deal X damage to a creature, and also X damage to me, where X is the number of goblins in play. So this could do a lot of board control.
What 2-mana 1/1s are not very good against is unsummon. I'm gonna bring it back to your hand.
All right.
Good tempo play.
Yep.
Whoop. My go?
Yes.
I'm gonna play a forest. Are you playing Smother main board? I think you're playing
yes.
Smother main board. That's what I've said in the panel.
Yes.
In the fireside time. I'll play a Wild Mongrel.
Ah, yes.
Very good creature. It's just a 2/2 dog, but at any time I may discard a card from my hand, and he gets +1/+1, and I've always wondered why this is here, but the color of my choice until end of turn? I guess if you have protection from green creatures or something.
Well, they're just, especially back then, there were a lot of cards that would destroy, say, a non-black creature.
Yeah.
So it could like discard to change color and protect itself from that.
You even had cards that would just change the color of a creature, right? As I recall, 1 blue.
Yeah, like some of those types of cards were there. And then also like back then, like color hosers were still like more prominent. I'm not entirely sure if like hibernation was still legal in 2003, but it certainly was in the year before. And
what's the one where every turn every player sacrifices a green creature that has cumulative upkeep 1 life?
No, hibernation would return all green creatures back to the owner's hand. So Wild Mongrel could discard a card.
So I could do a sneaky, and make it black, and then awesome. Well, you'll have to face that. Hope you don't have a hibernation. I'll pass to you.
Not gonna be in my deck. But it's actually funny. Like the most important part of this Wild Mongrel is certainly not the color switching. Certainly not in this matchup. Not even the +1/+1, although it is useful. It's just the ability to discard a card at will.
Yep. Which usually doesn't sound that good in most decks unless you're playing Reanimator, but this deck uses that quite well.
Yep. Goblin War Chief.
Ooh, that's a very powerful one.
Not only gives my goblins haste, but also reduces the cost of my goblins by 1 mana. I am not particularly interested in attacking and losing my War Chief to a card, so I'll just pass a turn.
This card is actually on the cover of one of the magazines you brought.
Yes. It was an iconic card back in the days.
I will play a forest, and I'll attack with my Wild Mongrel.
No blocks.
I see you know magic, Frank. I will pass to you.
All right, this smells like an arrogant worm. Oh boy. This turn is gonna be amazing. I'm gonna explode with goblins onto the battlefield. Let's unleash the power of the Goblin War Chief. Well, you still knew about this one, Sparksmith.
Yes.
Only 1 mana now.
Yeah, I was hoping the tempo play of returning it, forcing you to pay 2, didn't realize you'd reduced its cost.
I think it was definitely a good play to get rid of Sparksmith while you can, but well, it's back.
Now, and it has haste, so you can tap immediately.
So it resolves?
Yes, Frank.
Okay, there's counter magic in the deck. Next, I will add Goblin Sharpshooter.
Ooh, that's a good one. That resolves.
All right, Skirt Prospector.
Oh, wow. You just dropped your hand on the board, Frank. Yes.
I told you I was gonna unleash the power of the Goblin War Chief.
You did.
This is the Goblin deck in full force, and I actually feel safe to attack with the War Chief.
So this is a suspicious attack from Frank. It could either mean that he thinks I'm bluffing, and there's no way I have an arrogant worm. Maybe I'm keeping up a circular logic. Most likely it means he's planning on killing my worm. But I'm gonna play it out anyways, so might as well put it down now. So I had a really good trick, but I felt really clever, but it doesn't feel as good when you clearly know about it and still attack into it. I'm still gonna play this out because this is one of those interactions I found unbelievable as a kid. We've spoken about Wild Mongrel's discard ability.
Yes.
I'm gonna discard a card to give it +1/+1 and make it red.
Yes.
I'm gonna discard an Arrogant Worm. Arrogant Worm is a 4/4 Trampler for 5. The Madness is an ability that when you get to discard a card, you have the opportunity to play it while it's being discarded. So I will do that because 3 is way less than 5. So I'll pay 3, I make an instant speed Arrogant Worm, and
Hold on.
I will go to blocks.
Hold on. Yes, you did get the 3 mana 4/4.
Yeah,
which
it's
is
great.
which is awesome. But I'm gonna be pinging it with the Sparksmith.
Yep.
4 blockers.
You'll take 4?
So due to the death of Arrogant Worm, Goblin Sharpshooter triggers. It says whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, untap Goblin Sharpshooter. I'm gonna respond to that by activating its ability.
Yes.
Tap, deal 1 damage to, well, you. And then, well, it untaps because, like, the worm died.
This is one of the cards that feels the most. It plays the most like it feels like it's art. It really feels like you're pinging something down, and as they fall down, you keep on shooting. It's very flavorfully, really well designed.
Yeah, it's one of the more important goblins in this deck, even, I would say. So then, take 2.
I'm still taking 2, yes. I'll untap. I'm a little scared of all your goblins,
All right.
but I've got a dog and it bites. I'll attack with a 2/2 Wild Mongrel.
I'm not scared. No blocks.
Are you more scared if it's a 3/3 red Mongrel? I will activate its ability. So I did discard a noteworthy card. I'm gonna play an island, and in my graveyard, there's a. Once again, the synergies with discarding are so good in here because there's a card with flashback, which is an ability that you could play a card back from the graveyard and exile it as you play it. If it has a flash, you pay its flashback cost. And Roar of the Worm costs 7 mana to make a 6/6, which is pretty good. Unlimited, it must be awesome. But for 4 mana right now, I'm gonna make a 6/6 worm.
Yes, that is the highlight with this card. I mean, like for today's standard, I think just a 6/6 for 4 mana would be like, well, decent, but nothing too special.
It's a 10/10 for 5.
But creatures back in the days, and especially the sizes, were just smaller. Like this Roar of the Worm always ruled the battlefield.
Yeah, was there a commonly played creature that was bigger than a 6/6? Not in competitive standard, right?
Not that I remember. Like Psychotalk could like grow bigger, and like Wild Mongrel could grow to like a 7/7. But yeah, like nothing comes to mind. No.
Wow. All right. Well, I'm happy with my 6/6 then, the biggest creature you could think of. And I'll pass the turn to you.
So end of turn. Oh no, Goblin Sharpshooter doesn't untap during my untap step. Never mind. Well, maybe I got you actually.
From 17? And I have a 6/6 worm blocker?
This is one of those, like, how can you win the game this turn scenarios, where it's just a big mathematical puzzle. My first thought was to just, hardcast Siege Gang Commander and, like, get a bit of value. But if I would do that, just using my lands, I would tap myself out of black mana. And actually, with some clever use of Skirt Prospector, I may be able to, like, cast Siege Gang Commander and the Patriarch's Bidding on the same turn and just go off completely. This is gonna be a lot of damage. I may be able to actually set up lethal this turn. I think I got it.
And you realize that you don't have lethal, right?
No, I'm pretty sure I got this.
No.
So I'm going to be casting Siege Gang Commander.
Oh yeah, that's a great card.
Costs 4 mana due to the War Chief.
Yep.
So I'll tap 3 mountains and sack a Goblin to the Skirt Prospector.
You're really wanting to hold on to those extra lands.
Yeah, they may be important. This is on the stack. Trigger on the stack because a creature died. Sharpshooter pings you.
Yep.
So Siege Gang Commander enters the battlefield.
Yes.
Giving me 3 goblins. Then I am going to, ping you with the Sharpshooter. Sacrifice a goblin for mana. I have 1 mana in the pool. Sack another goblin in response, ping you with the Sharpshooter.
14, you have 2 mana in your pool.
Yep, ping you with the sharpshooter. Sack this goblin, it untaps. Okay, I'll sack this, ping you with the sharpshooter. Yep. Sacrifice the siege gang commander.
4 mana? You're sacrificing your siege gang commander?
Ping you with the sharpshooter, 11. Sacrifice the goblin war chief.
Wait,
untap.
so you're at 6 mana with the war chief, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I will ping you with the sharpshooter.
10?
Yes.
But now you have no more creatures.
I am going to sacrifice the Skirk Prospector. I have 7 mana.
If that's a Muxus?
It's not a Moxus.
Oh, that's a Bloodstain Mire.
Yes.
Wow. Fetch lands with old world's borders. You take 1, you're at 10?
Yep.
We're both at 10. I have a 6/6, and yet you still seem confident. I'm very scared.
All right. So I got my swamp. 2 black and 3 red. I'll cast Patriarch's Bidding.
Frank, what's happening?
I'll name Goblin. So each player chooses a creature type and then returns all creature types of a type chosen this way from their graveyard to play. Well, you can also choose. You can even discard more in response if you have some worms.
I don't.
Okay.
I will still name Worm.
Well, you'll get your worm. I'll get my Goblin army back.
Yes, and you have 4 mana still.
Yep. So Siege Gang Commander enters.
Todd wasn't wrong. He said when he said this never feels fair.
Indeed.
It doesn't.
Ping you with the sharpshooter. Use 2 mana I still have available to activate the ability on Siege Gang Commander. Sack a goblin, sacrifice this one.
I go to 7.
Yes, ping you, and the sharpshooter untaps.
Yep.
Okay, sharpshooter pings you again.
Go to 6.
Well, use the Siege Gang Commander again to ping you, and the sharpshooter untaps.
Yep.
Ping you again.
You don't even need to attack.
No, not even close. I'm going to sack a goblin for mana.
Yeah.
Ping you, sack a goblin for a 2nd mana.
Yep.
Ping you.
I go to 1.
And
you can
just activate Siege Gang Commander. Ping you.
Frank Karsten puzzle time. Yeah. Okay, I'm dead.
It wasn't even just lethal. I was over by a couple points of extra damage. This is.
I thought I had that one locked up. The Ray of Revelation and the Croson Reclamation are just not very good in this matchup. So we're going to take both of them out. We're also going to take out the Deep Analysis because paying 3 life from the graveyard doesn't sound very good against a Goblin deck. And we're going to bring in 2 Stupefying Touch because those are actually pretty good. They shut down Siege Gang Commander. They shut down the Sparksmith. And we're going to bring in 1 Phantom Centaur because it's not very good in this matchup. It's a little bit slow, but it's way better than a Ray of Revelation.
Okay, so while sideboarding, I am going to be boarding in a Smother, as well as at least 1 copy of Dark Banishing, because I really want to be able to take down Karl's Madness enablers, and possibly also a big Roar of the Worm. To make room, I'm going to cut, at least 1 Goblin Taskmaster, because, you can always cut 1 mediocre creature, and this is perhaps one of the worst ones. It's just a bit low impact. And I'll also shave 1 Patriarch's Bidding. It's still really good, so I'm keeping a couple of them in the deck. But, when adding several non-goblin cards, it is important to keep a critical mass of goblins in the deck, so shaving Patriarch's Bidding, another non-goblin card, makes some sense. Also, when I looked over the mana base of the deck, I felt a bit iffy about the number of black sources. I don't want to get into a situation where I draw multiple Patriarch's Biddings without double black. That could be really risky. But on the whole, the overall structure of my deck is perfect, just making a couple small tweaks in the removal department.
So we have to be a little bit more careful with these because we are giving out these decks at the end of the video. We'll just explain, but there's a link in the pinned comment. Follow it there. There will be an explanation. Are you ready for game 2?
I am. Let's go.
This is actually pretty solid. As long as my Aquamoeba sticks around, I can just play a tempo style game plan where I attack, I can keep up 4/4 flash worms or counter magic. It seems pretty good.
So my opening hand is not perfect, but I think it will be good enough to keep. The awkward part is that I have a Skirk Prospector, but I don't actually have a mountain yet to cast it on turn 1. But still, I have an okay mix between lands and spells. And very importantly, I have Smother, which may be able to take down a Wild Mongrel or an Acromoeba on turn 2, thereby making it very difficult for Karl to leverage all of his Madness synergies. And then after, hopefully I can take over with the same team of goblins.
All right, okay. Not only are we playing fun old worlds decks, we have good hands. I will leave.
Well, I didn't say my hand was good.
I will leave up Unsummon
Okay, sure.
and pass it on to you.
Well, in that case, I am not even gonna cast a creature.
Oh, yeah, because I have Unsummon.
Shadowblood Rich. It currently does nothing because it only adds mana when I have another land. Go.
I'll play a forest and I'll look at your deck list.
Are you looking at my deck
I'm
list?
looking at your sideboard.
This is outside information. This certainly was not allowed in the World Championship top 8.
On the table. It's so cool that these did come with the list in case you didn't know. Also, well, the sideboard cards have SB written on them.
Oh yeah, it's
So
actually very convenient, so you know what was in the sideboard.
Yeah, little
Yep.
SB.
Yeah, I love that.
So I see that you have another smother that you bring in, and you have Dark Banishing. Keeping in mind that you have a lot of removal, I'm gonna play an Aquamoeba. It's a 1/3, which is great against your slew of 1/1s. But also, on theme, I can discard a card from my hand to switch its power and toughness until end of turn.
Yeah, it's basically Wild Mongrel copies 5 through 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll pass it turn to you.
The discard enablers, like the madness enablers in Carl's deck, are really big threats, and generally you want to get rid of them pretty quickly. I remember the best way to actually take down Aquamoeba was by pinging it with Goblin Sharpshooter. There was this like nifty trick when the opponent would activate Aquamoeba, right? Put a change its power toughness effect on the stack. You would respond by pinging it with Goblin Sharpshooter. And then even if they were to change the power toughness in response, there would always be a time where it was gonna be a 3/1 with a damage marked on it, which meant that, well, it died. I don't have a Goblin Sharpshooter yet. It will also come down far too late. This Aquamoeba has to get off the table, and preferably quickly before it's gonna be throwing out arrogance and worms left and right. All right. What I learned against this deck is that madness outlets have to die immediately.
So you did have the smother.
I did.
Yeah, it's gone. I will play an island. I have to keep unsummoning up.
Of course, of course.
And I'm going to play a Wild Mongrel, which I'm happy I didn't play last time because it would be in my graveyard right now.
Yes.
I'll pass the turn to you.
Graveyard, graveyard. That's indeed where I like the mongrel to be.
Oh, Frank! Oh, that's really impractical. I noticed you played a land before.
Yes, I know there's like circular logic in your deck. If you want to counter it, that's fine, but you'll have to discard an additional card to do so.
I do believe that in this specific moment, I really need my Wild Mongrel. So I'm going to discard a Roar of the Worm. I'll make Wild Mongrel a 3/3 red creature.
Okay.
And then I will discard Circular Logic to give it +1/+1 and make it blue.
I guess the downside of discarding an additional card was not really a thing.
So Circular Logic is a counters target spell unless its controller pays 1 for each card in your graveyard, and I have 2.
Yes, it is countered.
Yes.
Well, at least I got a Skirk Prospector.
Ooh.
Go ahead.
I will attack into your Skirk Prospector with my Wild Mongrel.
Take it.
And I'll just pass the turn to you. I don't have the 4th land.
This gives me flashbacks of Arrogant Worms. I don't trust you for one bit.
I'm interested in flashbacks of Roar of the Worm.
Sure, but either the cards in your hand are certainly not lands because you would probably have cast Roar of the Worm, but you also didn't do anything with them, so yeah, it's pretty likely that there's gonna be some madness.
If you can
cards
guess
lurking
all
in there.
3, I'll show them to you.
Give me your deck list.
Yes, you're allowed to do this too.
Well, rough guess. There's gonna be an Arrogant Worm because there's always an Arrogant Worm.
There is.
And well, it's something else that you didn't want to play yet. I don't think it's another Aquamoeba because you probably would have played that over the Wild Mongrel. I'm gonna say I don't know, Arrogant Worm, Careful Study, Wonder.
No, but you're surprisingly close.
All right. Yeah, it still doesn't bode well for me, that's for sure. So I'm gonna add red to my mana pool.
Okay.
Add another red. Goblin War Chief. Does it resolve?
So I had other plans, but I know how good that card is. I don't like that Wild Mongrel is green. I'm gonna make it red and give it +1/+1 by discarding Circular Logic.
Okay.
Oh, it's being discarded. I'll pay 1, and I'll play it for its madness cost. And I'll counter that unless you pay 3.
Yeah, it's countered. So technically you could have Basking Hoodwalla here to ambush an attacking Skirk Prospector. I'm just gonna walk into it.
You always know exactly what's in my hand. Yeah, I take 1. Well, it's a very slow race, Frank. I will discard an Arrogant Worm, cast it while it's being madness, and hit you for 3 with a black 3/3 dog.
I'm down to 15.
15, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the ambush value was not going to be
You guessed
worth
it in my
much,
hand
so,
anyways.
I mean, it's always in the Madness player's hand. Okay, another Shadow Blood Ridge and a Siege Gang Commander, which comes with 3 tokens. Go ahead.
I'll draw. Now, I don't like how much math is to be done on your side, because you can sacrifice to deal damage. So if I attack like with this, for example, and this, you could block, sacrifice, make red. I'm not gonna think about it. I'm just going to smash.
Makes sense. No blocks.
I'm gonna discard another. You said they always have it. I'm gonna discard another Arrogant Worm to my Wild Mongrel, making it white.
Okay.
And I'll hit you for 7 at the current moment.
They always come in pairs. So I'm gonna be playing it pretty aggressively here. My plan is to just get in for a bunch of damage early on and then use Siege Gang Commander to take Carl down to 0 life. Siege Gang Commander, especially in combination with Skirk Prospector, can just produce lethal damage out of nowhere. I do have to be a bit careful because I have to be, like I'm in a damage race, so I'll have to be chump blocking. But I can pass the turn with 2 blockers, 1 Skirk Prospector and 1 Goblin Pile Driver. So even if Carl has like an unsummon, I'm not going to be dead on board. So that it feels safe enough to just be getting in with everything. This is a damage race. That's the type of magic I love. Cycle Gem Palm Incinerator. So when I cycle it, I may have to deal X damage to target creature, where X is the number of goblins in play. I'll just
There's a lot of goblins in play.
Deal 5 to the Arrogant Worm.
Yep, it's very gone.
Yeah, this card in a goblin deck is just the best removal spell you can ever wish for. I'm gonna be attacking with everything.
Everything?
Yeah, yep, I'm going on the offense. Trying to close the game before you find Wonder.
All right, I mean, that seems great for me.
I'll add a Skirk Prospector.
Okay.
And a Goblin Pile Driver.
Ooh.
Go ahead.
You didn't even attack with the hasty. Oh no, it doesn't have haste.
No, nothing has haste. I also need a blocker.
Unfortunately, you have exactly the right amount of blockers. Frank?
Yes.
I did have Hunt Summon this whole time.
You did?
No. No, I did not. I mean, I'm going to unsummon though this Skirk Prospector.
Sure.
Because I can't target the Pile Driver.
Yep. Yeah, it'll resolve. Yeah. Sure.
Okay. And then I'll declare attacks with both. I do feel like it's relevant to tell you I have 2 cards in hand.
Yes, I'm well aware. Okay, I'll chump block the Wild Mongrel.
Okay. No effects. I'm just going to play an island. And hope you don't have anything that kills me. Oh, no. You know it's not good when Frank's doing math.
All right, I'll just stack with everything.
With everything?
Yeah.
No effects?
I'll take it down, but okay, I'll add Skirk Prospector.
Okay.
And Goblin Taskmaster. Go ahead. I feel safe enough.
I'm going to attempt to cast a Careful Study.
Okay, resolves. Okay. I hope there's no Wonder on top.
Well, you could still shoot down my Arrogant Worm, but oh, you can't shoot down both. Draw. And then I discard 2. I will discard a Basking Root Walla, which feels great, but gives me a free 1/1. And an island. Okay, I will do Careful Study again. I'm gonna get there.
So you're certainly gonna discard both cards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Discard Aquamipa and oh, that is very good.
So now all your creatures have flying.
All my creatures currently have flying. I don't have cards in hand. Okay. Frank?
You used all parts of all the resources you had.
Everything I had. But I think it's good enough. I'll declare attacks. I'll attack you.
All right. So no blocks, but activate the Siege Gang to ping down the Arrogant Worm.
Oh yeah, it's true. I don't have enough cards in hand to discard to the Mongrel.
Ping that one down as well.
Yep. And I'll pass the turn to you.
Well, I do believe that this is now lethal. So let's add a land for good measure. And attack you with everything. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll force the issue. I'll block here, and I'll pump the Root Walla.
Yep.
I pay 2 to give it +2/+2 until end of turn.
Yep. Well, use, let's say, Goblin Taskmaster to pump itself.
Okay.
So this is now 2 power creature. And, well, the Siege Gang can also sacrifice itself.
I go down to 5. I take 2, 3, 4. Good game.
Good game, Carl.
Well, Frank, in this game, okay, sure, I kind of saw the writing on the wall. I knew I was probably going to lose it, but game 1, I don't know where you pull that wit out of. You don't even have sleeves. Where did you take it from? You just out of nowhere. You were doing math, And I thought you were calculating blockers.
Blockers? No. That's not how we play aggro decks. So like the first thing you always do when you start the turn is figure out, can I somehow produce lethal? And like I didn't even like realize it at first, but yeah, this did bring me back to these days of the Goblin decks in Standard. Because sometimes the Goblin players themselves would be even surprised with, like, you don't even need like Patriarch's Bidding, but just like Short Prospector plus the Goblin Sharpshooter plus Siege Gang Commander. It creates this whole mathematical puzzle, but yeah, sometimes you can just, oh wait, it's actually lethal.
Yeah, you start doing math and you're like, oh cool, this is pretty good. This works out for me. Well, if you want something to work out for you guys as well, as we said, we don't need these decks. These are pretty hard to find, so we had to buy them, but we're not going to have them live around the office. So what I'll ask you to do if you want it as well is we have an email. It's displayed below, or you can look it up in our About page. If you send us an email, you have to title it Berlin Worlds. And if you tell us your favorite story about either a Goblins deck or a Madness deck, and if you've never played with either, just your favorite story about Frank Karsten, we'll pick 2 lucky winners. Include your Cardmarket account in the email, and we'll send it to the Cardmarket account on your email address. In the meantime, thank you, Frank. If you did enjoy...
Thanks for having me.
Of course, it's always a pleasure. And if we get to have this pleasure again, if maybe you guys enjoyed these videos, we have a lot of years that we have not yet covered. So maybe we'll be doing that again. And in the meantime, anything else to say?
Thanks for having me. This was great. I love the nostalgia to like play with these old decks again and relive this era of Magic. These decks were iconic, and yeah, it was great to be able to play with them again. See you in the next video.